All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite Dark Sorcerer. And today I'd like to sit down with you and discuss tools and fetishes. Okay? Now, I know what you're thinking. Fetishes. It's sexual, right? Well, no, not necessarily. Okay? Hey, Shelly333. How you doing today? So, why don't we get down to business here? And I'll explain what I mean by tools and fetishes. Okay. Every tradition that I've studied over the last 3 decades have talked about either tools that you apply to your rituals or things that are considered to be today fetishes. And I'm doing okay. I had my car vandalized night before last, so yeah, mirrors got turned around. The windshield wiper blade on the back got snapped off, tossed across the street. A neighbor's motorcycle, same night, got trashed in the parking lot. Yeah, same shit, just some other day. So, but anyways, how should I say this? All right, tools of how these things relate to being tools, especially that in rituals and ceremonies. Those of you who have a basic understanding of doing love spells or destruction rituals, even curses or hexes, okay, have some basic understanding of things like photographs, articles of clothing, fingernail clippings, blood of a target or victim, okay? In past videos, I've discussed, how should I say this, different cursing and hexing techniques, utilizing just what I named off. But I'm not the only one who has discussed this in detail, okay? And what these tools and items can be used for, all right? Sorceress Cagliostro, the necromancer, in her book, The Blood Sorcery Bible, Volume 1, discusses the, let's just say, the juices of lustrous delights that can be used in a curse. She also brings up the fact that things such as fingernail clippings can be utilized to link a curse to a specific target. In magic, witchcraft, sorcery, we know this to be true. It's things that can be linked to a specific spell. But what about bones? What about bones? We know that bones are associated with the spiritual realm. We know that they're the link between reality and spiritual. We know that blood is the connection between life and death. This has been proven time and time again throughout witchcraft, throughout necromancy, even throughout medical practices of modern day, going all the way back to around the 15th century, 16th century even. We know that through necromancy, the rejuvenation of corpses have been played into effect throughout the medical science from the 16th century forward, from electrocution to um, icy water. But we also know that nowadays you have blood transfusions, you have organ transplants, you have a lot of things that is considered to do or be associated with necromancy. Now, I find it interesting because of the fact that I was thinking about this the other day. I went out, I finally scraped together the money for two books that I was looking for and to actually get and to read because I've heard good things about them. Now, I've been following E.A. Coetting for a while. Okay, he's an okay practitioner. He knows what he's talking about. But there were some grimoires that I thought were interesting, and I finally got my hands on a couple of them. The complete works, about $87 off Amazon, and then another one that was about $34 total off Amazon, and that's the one I'm going to be talking about today, right here. Necromantic Sorcery. All right, but I'm also going to discuss Chanel Whispers with you. Chanel Whispers is a book put out by Sumnus Dreadwood, and he's another one that went in and discussed bones, organs, and certain items that could be used in necromantic rituals, rites. Okay. Now here, I want to just read you something real fast. Fetish items. This is on page 43 of Dante Abiel's book. There are items the victim has had personal contact with, such as a journal or diary, a scrap from a pillow. It is said the pillow houses the soul while sleeping. Clothing, particularly their favorite shirt or blouse. And a signature and a photo can be used if necessary. These are good items to use to establish a firm link to the unconscious mind of the victim. Okay? Now, you notice there was nothing said about bones. Okay? I found that very interesting too. But then he separates the fetish from the fetish marks. Okay? And he says there are items that come directly from the intended victim, such as blood, semen, menstrual fluid, tears, skin follicles, or a lock of their hair. Okay? The fetish marks will grant you power over their unconscious and conscious minds. Physical manipulation is possible if you have the avenue for it. Both of these items are marks, and marks will allow the necromancer to establish an intimate connection with the victim. This bridge is one that is easily traveled with the proper knowledge. A child could perform necromantic fetish magic. It is that intuitive. Okay? Now, I found it interesting right here. Okay? The fact that he brings up things that have been in grimoire traditions, things that have been written about in black magic, sorcery, things that have been spoken on long before him, okay, such as blood, such as photos, names, addresses, things that were also new, such as the pillow. Who would have thought about a pillow, right? I can tell you that I didn't. But here's the kicker. If we go back just a couple pages before that, you have fetish, links, and meditation. That's on page 38. Go back to page 35, and you have the human skull. Page 36, femur. Then you can go into vertebrae definition. Page 37, the vertebrae. But this is the part that I was talking about earlier. Brain, heart, liver, kidneys, skin. All things associated with black magic, cursing, hexing, and yes, even necromancy. Okay? Now, Sumnus Dreadwood, in the book Charnel Whispers, describes certain bones, including the femur and the skull. These two go hand in hand with rituals, especially that of spiritual conjuration. If you have an altar, you most likely have a skull or skulls on your altar. Okay, either in front of your altar, in back of your altar, or just a single skull, dead center of a pentagram. A lot of people seem to go for these pentagrams these days. They go with some form of circle of empowerment. They can go all the way back through to the Grand Grimoire, Constitution of Pope Honorius, Clavicle of Solomon, even as far forward as the Munich manuscripts. But out of all of them, even the grimoire of Abermelin the Mage, or the grimoire of Arbatel, you see, all of these have circles. All of these have necromancy written in them. Even that of, say, for an example, Doctrines of High Witchcraft by Eliphas Levi, Aleister Crowley's work. You can go into H.P. Lovecraft and find some variation of necromantic rites and rituals, especially if you're dealing with the gates. The first gate of Inanna. You really need to get into that. It's like going into voodoo and getting in touch with Papa Legba, the gate opener. Go into How to Become a Living God, and you have the 9 infernal gatekeepers. 9. So 1 becomes 9. Interesting, right? All right. It's going to get more comfortable here. So, anyways, as I was saying, tools and fetishes. Things that used to be just classified as tools used in the trade of a sorcerer or sorceress, a mage or a sage, are now being linked together with sexual stuff. We see this clearly within Sorceress Cagliestro's book, The Blood Sorcery Bible, Volume 1. And she literally comes out and discusses this of how a necromancer, a practitioner of blood sorcery, could have some form of relationship with an enemy and utilize bodily fluids for a curse, a hex, to be placed on this individual. It's now become things associated with lust rituals. Things, we see this on social media today. Everything has become all about sex. It's all, and I think a lot of this really has to do with that of what's been going on in the world with this lockdown. A lot of people are frustrated. They can't get out of their house to do things because of the lockdown. They get out just long enough to buy groceries or medical stuff, but nobody really wants to leave their house and do anything. Socialism has now become the disease, the fear. So when you get on Facebook nowadays, you're going to see all this things dealing with families. You're going to see things, memes, or what do they call those, emoji, or what, however you want to pronounce it, of photos of sexual delights. You see, this is a fetish. Earlier today, I woke up and I got underneath Facebook and I saw a sculpture of a foot with the woman's anatomy on the top, with a bone would slide down in to the ankle through the calf. Okay? This is considered a fetish. Things that you would find in a porn shop is now being associated with occultism. Personally, I find it degrading, sickening, because it has nothing to do with sorcery. But here's the thing. When you think of certain practices, have witches not done something similar throughout history? You look at Remy's discovery of witchcraft, powders and potions, tools of the trade found on them. You go into Scottish witchcraft and you see where things associated with relationship issues, fetishes such as toads or frogs, believed to get rid of warts underneath a full moon, relationships of running commando style from your hut to your intended. And if you get there without being seen, stopped, or caught in general, it means you're going to have a successful relationship with that individual. You see, this is in the Warlock's book by Paul, who's on, or was it Peter Haining? Peter Haining's The Warlock's book. He's got a lot of stuff in there, from destruction rituals to lust rituals to relationships, even things on the sacred elixir that would bring you immortality, but the month of not eating, the turmoil that plays into effect. And all you do is you drink that elixir, but you have to have somebody there with you throughout that entire month. Yeah, he's got that in there. A lot of it comes from the Hermetics or the Cabal system, the Kabbalah. But a lot of it is just names of power, prayers, just like any other form of witchcraft that brings in the names of God. However, I mentioned Sumner Stridwood. I mentioned the book Shauna Whispers. It is in my opinion, the most purest book out there on necromantic rites and rituals. History, even. Much like Christian Days, the Witch's Book of the Dead. And this is why. The history lines up with mythology, the different regions of the world. But more so, Shauna Whispers literally takes you back into the old world, the folklore. I used to wonder, where did they get this name, Cornersbog, the Black God? Well, I found him, spelled with a CH. Cherno Bog, the Dark God, the Black God, and Slavic. Going all the way back into Proto-Germanic, Baltic, Slavic, Norse, Anglo-Saxon, Irish, Scottish regions of the world. And I found it interesting how all of these old traditions have things associated with them. The items are common throughout history. Skulls, bones, now associated with secret societies, rituals through African Caribbean traditions. But not just there, you see it also in shamanism, you see it in necromancy, you see it in Satanism, you see it in witchcraft, and yes, even voodoo. Voodoo practices. You see the skulls with the candles on them. You see the hand of glory with a match sticking from the middle finger, severed from the rotting corpse of a convicted killer. Yeah, all this stuff is throughout history, throughout rituals. But what if I told you that everything from that I named off, names, addresses, items of clothing, blood, food, all of this stuff can be classified as both fetish and tools. A lot of this stuff can be used, especially if your opponent has had some form of contact with it. And like I said, I started thinking about this the day before yesterday because when I touched on this page, I finally had a chance to sit down and actually begin reading it. And I'm already about halfway through the book, just within a couple of days. And I found it interesting because of the fact that while I was reading down through his variation of tools and fetishes, he refers to them more as fetishes than anything. And yet we're also talking about a guy that supposedly went so insane practicing these rites and rituals that he basically shunned wedding and went Christian. Ironic, isn't it? We also see how a lot of practices, Palo Mayumbi, you get on YouTube and you type in Palo Mayumbi rituals, and you scroll down and you see the Nagunga with machetes and skulls and bones and sticks, coins even. Coins are associated with the Day of the Dead. They go all the way back into Greek mythology where they were given to the dead so they can pay Shinron for the voyage across the seas. We see these videos where You see some form of skulls sometimes buried. Other times they're just left after the rite. But yet, a dark arts practitioner wouldn't leave any evidence of their rituals lying around. But yet in Palo Mayumbi, they supposedly do. Nah, they wouldn't do that. It would be like a boko from, say, Africa or Haiti, utilizing bones of a relative, severing their limbs, utilizing them for power. You see my point there. But yet, if we go back into, say, Aztec, humanistic rituals, the fetishes of the organ being ripped from the live beating chest of a victim. We see it again in Druidism, both in Salem, New Hampshire, Stonehenge, both there and in England. The sacrificial blood offering, another fetish, another tool. Blood sorcery, bloodletting. And as a black magician and a sorcerer, I use blood sorcery a lot. My son's mother's a Christian, she's a Baptist. And she looked at my arm, because I have one area right here just for bloodletting. Bloodletting is an ancient technique. You can use a lancet, a needle, a knife, or even a razor nowadays to draw that blood. And she said, and I quote, "It looks almost to the point of a cutter." I said, "Define a cutter." You see, it's that perception of how you view things, the perception of bloodletting versus doing something out of necessity for control. You see, a cutter does it because it's the only way for them to control their pain, what they're going through, their depression, their frustrations, and they're acting out by carving on themselves. But in blood sorcery, it's different. You're doing it for a purpose, a complete need for that purpose to be carried out. For an example, blood sorcery being used not only through magnetics like Sorcerer's Cagliostro, but to be placed on dark objects, to give as an offering to a deity, a demon, an angel, an Ugan, a Loa, or even a former god, petitioning spirits in general, opening that gateway, that portal. You see, this is different. This is the difference between a cult and the occult, right? But yet, to the outside world, they're going to see one thing because it's how they've been trained to view it. Those of us who have been in the occult have looked at these items and see them as just everyday tools used in rituals and ceremonies. Simple as that. But to the world, it's mental illness, it's insanity. And they'll label you a cutter, disturbed individual, an outcast. Perhaps this is why so many shamans, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, the Hexa, the Ezja, the Strega, shaman, all these, the mage and the sage, have all lived on the borders of a village or out by themselves in the woods. Solitary. I mean, even in India, those who are associated with death are avoided because they're considered dead already. Necromancy, we see a lot of things, a lot of connections to the dead, items that we use. This is made apparent and is actually backed up through Charnel Whispers. But we also see it again through Lucifer Raphael's book, Necromancy, Forbidden Arts. We see it again within Richard Keffer's book, the Munich Manuscript, otherwise known as the 15th century book on Manual for Necromancy, Forbidden Rites. We see it again within Christian Days, which is Book of the Dead. You go even further back and you see it in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. You go over into Egypt and you see it in the Book of the Dead itself, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The reanimation versus the conjuration. The Magus by Francis Barrett. We see it again in how a corpse, an item, a simple divination tool where you can guide the spirit back to the body or to a different body. Is that considered a fetish, or is it considered a tool? To the world, it's a fetish. To a practitioner, it's a tool. Just a simple tool. No more different than anathema, a car, a pen. So it comes down to your perception. Tool or fetish. I guess everybody has their own opinion in this area. Each one of these is different, though. For an example, in the Forbidden Rites, it's a book based off 13th century. It's literally 13th century, the Munich manuscripts, which later became Forbidden Rites in the 15th century. And it was a book based off experimentation through illusions, but it used the dead. It used spiritual conjuration. It used tools such as a scepter, anathema, the hand of glory. You go into Google and you type in necromancy, and you're going to see a photo of a monk and an apprentice standing in a circle of empowerment. The triangle of evocation just in front of them. A grist bag on the ground with smelly herbs. In a cemetery. Hanging out in cemeteries. Is that not a fetish? How many people actually go and hang out in cemeteries visiting the dead loved ones? Is that not considered a fetish? Or is it a working tool, a mechanism that allows you to work through grief or remembrance of who they were? Is it psychological? Again, befalling insanity, mental illness. You see it. Even Dante Abiel states clearly at the beginning of this book that it drove him to insanity. Literally, the obsession of how it got him to where he was, how powerful he became, only to give it up and run to Christianity. But what I found interesting was the very next page. He talks about exorcism, exorcism with the state of possession, spirits. In necromancy, we have what is known as a spirit box. In Palo Mayumbi, you have the Nganga. In other African traditions, such as voodoo, Vudan, you have the Temple of the Loa. It's an altar set up. Even hell, even in Christianity, you have a sanctuary created for that spirit. They refer to it as the Spirit of Christ. Is that not an illusion? Is that not a mental illness? Obsession? Hmm. Again, perception and how it comes down to it. Things like bones, blood, flesh. People forget that even in Christianity, the book of Leviticus, the burnt offerings. Yeah, burnt offerings. How they slaughtered an animal, left its carcass to be burned, its entrails placed on the altar. And that blood, the blood in a jar, and the smell enticed the god. Think about that. I want you to think about that because in dark sorcery, dark magic, even in Mexico City, the brujas peddling their brews and their potions at the witch markets. Hell, you go over to England and you have the same thing. All over the world, you're going to see these items being used. Blood of bat, bat's blood, alligators being tied up and put into jars to be sacrificed and utilized for black magic. You don't believe me? Go into YouTube, type in black magic. Number one, you're going to come up with a band. It's an all-girls band. And number two, you're going to see things on videos of black magic, sorcery. But keep in mind that the third aspect is mostly done by Christians. Christians talking about black magic and why you should avoid it. But yet people, Christians themselves forget all this stuff is in their own Bible. Their own Bible. Jesus Christ, their supposed savior, brought back the Shantorian's daughter, Lazarus, from the pit, performed witchcraft and calmed the elements such as the sea of the Jordan. But we also see other things, such as murder, incest, rape, bloodbaths, things of beheading. But most importantly, we see even that Nicodemus went to Jesus Christ. We also, underneath the cloak of night, asked him how he can get up into heaven. But if you go back into the Old Testament, we also see where King Saul, the servant of the Most High, okay, went underneath the cloak of darkness after sending his men out to find the most powerful seer. And he met up with the witch of Endor. Ironically, a lot of individuals speak just about her. When you do research into the Witch of Endor, you find out that she was a necromancer. You find out that she was into black magic. She was a shaman, but she also performed blood sorcery. But a lot of people today go by the grimoire systems of necromancy, black magic, and sorcery within the utilizing of just these items that I've named off: skin, hair, blood, bones. And each bone can be classified for a certain type of ritual. I found that very, very interesting because of the fact that Sumner Stredwood really touched on it big time in his book, Chanel Whispers. So far, you just got methods out of this one here. Very, very good, I must say. Sumnus and the Cabal really go into details in their books, their works. They don't just skim that topic. They don't take after the Christian, the JCI, and go, okay, so this person went to the Witch of Endor and she performed a rite, and after saying, why are you trying to ensnare me? Oh, look, let's go into this other scripture where it says, oh, this, do not, hang out with seers, necromancers, charmers, and soothsayers, and everything like that. But, so you see how you got the corruption and you've got the truth. Okay. Not everybody is going to share all their secrets. This is something I've learned over 30 years of study, intense study, to the point of obsession. I didn't associate with a lot of people. I mean, I spent thousands of dollars going from one side of the country to the other, studying with brujas, shamans, voodoo practitioners, palomayambi practitioners, Satanists, witches, and I can tell you that not everybody is going to share all their secrets with you. And I found it interesting that people like dark sorcery because they're actual practitioners here teaching what they know, showing you, bringing everything to the table and going into a well-rounded sculpture from practices. You got Carrie, who does bone sorcery. She works with bones, just like I do. You got me, the educational, D.H. Thorne, the intuitive. You know, you got Alfredo doing his thing. And then you got Catna. Probably butchered her name on that one. Just realized that. But you see how everybody brings something to the table. It's not the encampment or division of, well, I'm right, you're wrong. No, you got individuals coming together and showing it from an educational perspective. You have actual practices being put forth. You're seeing rituals being performed live right here. And then you're seeing all the tools that have been used for hundreds of years going from being seen as ritual tools and items, like a bell, a phallus, a skull, a rock, now being associated with phalluses, with fetishes, rather. You're seeing it being associated in a whole new way, a whole new light. It's just, what's that old expression that a friend of mine put just yesterday? Oh, right. Same day, just different shit. Plain and simple. It's just same shit, just another day. But where else are you going to find sources of information? Where else are you going to see actual live practices, rituals, being taught how to do them? Truth is, you're not going to find something like this outside of dark sorcery, without egotism, without showmanship, without some form of price being put on it. It's about popularity. It's about ego. It's about showmanship. Who has the most subscribers? Who has the most followers? But where's the down to earth humbleism that you're going to see from real practitioners showing you and bringing you the content that you need to do your own study, your own research, your own practice? You can't buy that. You can't. But I just wanted to get on here for real fast and show you what I've been up to lately. Studying, practicing, doing research. Got some new materials that came in. I've got another one on the way that I paid $105 and some odd cents to buy. And it's associated with the path that I'm currently walking. And I can tell you, I'm looking forward to that one. Really, really badly. So, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank Judy Carter, Miss B, Shelly333, and I'm probably going to butcher your name, but Kutz, Mango Linden. I want to thank you for jumping on here with me. Hope you've learned a lot. And you welcome Shelly, Judy, and Miss B. But yeah, now that you have the information, now that you have a small historical lesson here, my next video will be later today. And I'll be talking a little bit on my own channel about methods of utilizing certain tools. All right. And I'll be back later in the week to do another video here on Dark Sorcery. So have a good day, a good night, depending on where you are in the world. And until next time.